Look at this map of the ancient Silk Road. Right in the middle, where the massive trade routes of China, Persia, and the Mediterranean all converge, sits Samarkand. For centuries, if you were moving silk, spices, or ideas across continents, you eventually passed through this exact geographic choke point. And when you finally arrive, exhausted from the journey, you are hit with this: 3 colossal structures, perfectly balanced, framing a seemingly flawless and symmetrical courtyard. This sense of instant divine perfection is entirely by design. The square functions as a manufactured environment, built to manage how every visitor perceives the power of the Silk Road. What looks like one coherent design is actually a patchwork of eras, built hundreds of years apart, by rulers with entirely different agendas. One of these supposed religious schools actively violates the visual taboos of its own faith in broad daylight. Another uses an optical illusion to manipulate how the viewer perceives scale and depth. To understand the power dynamics of the ancient Silk Road, we have to stop treating Registan Square as a single postcard. We need to deconstruct the visual tricks used to build it. Let's start on the western side, with the original anchor point of the square, the Ulugh Beg Madrasa, built in the early 15th century by a ruler scientist. Outside, the building is designed to intimidate. These twin minarets stand 33 meters high, pulling your eyes upward to create a sense of vertical tension and rational order. But the moment you walk through that massive outer archway, the scale changes. This is the interior courtyard. The vertical drop of the exterior falls away, replaced by 2-story student dormitories known as hudras. It's a shift from grand public spectacle to an intimate, enclosed space. The building uses scale on the outside to project power to the city, but focuses on intimate geometry on the inside to prioritize science and the study of the stars. Now turn 180 degrees to the eastern side of the square. At first glance, the Sher Dor Madrasa looks identical to the one across from it. This side-by-side comparison illustrates a deliberate architectural principle called kosh, a forced visual symmetry where 2 buildings face each other to balance the weight of a plaza. Sher Dor was actually built 200 years later, matching its neighbor to help legitimize a new ruler's reign. Look closely at the Sher Dor facade's upper arches. You'll find a tiger chasing a deer, carrying a human-faced sun. Placing figurative art on an Islamic religious institution is an extreme taboo, yet here it is, baked into a theological school. Sher Dor acts as a secular roar of royal authority. It wears a religious disguise, hijacking the credibility of the older building across the square to assert dominance. Finally, we arrive at the center building, Tilia Kori. Its long 2-story facade acts as a visual wall. It spans the northern edge, enclosing what used to be an open market, turning the plaza into a controlled outdoor hall. While the exterior acts as a barrier, the interior projects unimaginable wealth. Almost every inch is covered in a 17th century technique called kundal, layering thick gold over deep blue. Stand directly in the center of the main prayer room and look straight up. This diagram reveals a masterful trompe-l'oeil effect. You see a deeply recessed, cavernous dome stretching high into the dark. But the lines of perspective and gradient shading are a trick. This ceiling is completely flat. When physical space or engineering limits a builder, optical illusions become the tool used to project infinite grandeur. If you pull away from the gold leaf and the rigid geometry, a different version of Samarkand emerges. Hidden behind the main square sits the Chorsu. It's a modest, domed trading post made of simple brick, dating back to the 15th century. While rulers erected towering monuments to their own power, this was the reality of everyday Silk Road life. Merchants haggling over hats, textiles, and basic supplies. Long before it was a theater for royal architecture, the word Registan meant sandy place. It was a dirt crossroads where people came to trade. The eternal perfection you see today almost didn't survive. By the late 19th century, the square was largely an abandoned, collapsing ruin. It took a systematic engineering effort in the 20th century to save these structures from total failure. Look at this engineering diagram. The towering minarets had detached from the main structures and were severely leaning. Engineers used modern tension cables to literally drag thousands of tons of ancient brick back into a straight vertical line. Today's visual harmony is an actively maintained preservation of multiple competing histories that were never meant to coexist so cleanly. Registan Square is a place where geometry, forced symmetry, and modern engineering compel science, religion, and secular power into a flawless and permanent standoff.